Welcome to the Dutchman's Wood Shack. Today I'm going to talk about tools. Tool time. Tool time. I was going to do it yesterday, but I had my pre-op stuff going on tomorrow. Yesterday. Monday is the day I get zip. Who's hopefully um, it won't be bad, but we'll see. Okay, so Sanders. I've been working on some stuff and slowly. Um, and I'm gonna be sanding this. All right, so um, I wanted to show you what kind of stuff and what kind of tools I use to sand it with. Okay, well, if you're ever working on a project, there's a couple different ways you could do this. Now, usually I have one, two, and maybe three of these set up with different kinds of paper. Um, there's different things that I have now. I've got some older tools that I use too. So, but there's one in here you don't use that much, and that's this thing. It's the belt sander. Well, there's a couple reasons why I say that. Okay, but I'll get into that later. Okay, so these are my two newest ones, and then second newest one, which is this. It's a Bosch. I want to talk about tools and how you take care of them too. So it's a little dusty in here. These three have been sitting down in my toolbox. I haven't used them much lately. This is probably the oldest one I got. Um, there's actually one older. It's a belt sander. It's a 4-inch belt sander. It's a Craftsman. It's aluminum, built like a tank. Right? Okay. So what what I'm going to talk about today is the new ones are really awesome. You can take these off Velcro. Now the only drawback is you see my Velcro is running off, right? It's starting. I can pull it off, but the good news is I had backup because when I bought this, they actually had another piece in here that I can replace it, and it's pretty simple. There's not much to these things. Now a couple of things that I do to them when I'm using them. After I'm using them, I take my air hose and I blow them out. I take this off, I empty it in the trash bin, and I even clean that out. I do it all the time. And the reason I do that is because the bearings in them, if you don't take care of them and keep the dust out of it, they actually act like, sand getting in them. So, and I try to keep them clean. Now, when I'm sanding something like this, all right, I'll use on the um, on the lathe. I'll usually get to a certain point and use this stuff. Use a different kind of sandpaper on it than what I use on this. And what I usually do is I get the parts that I can get without it, like this, for instance. I don't really use the sandpaper on the when I sand this on the lathe. Normally, if I'm just doing a raw piece of wood with no bark on it, I'll sand 2/3 of it on the lathe. There's spots that you need to take this off and take care of as the last minute finish touch. But okay, so if you go to the store and you buy it, if you want to buy a sander, a palm sander, there's a wide variety in there. Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, Ace, and whoever else has quite a selection, or Rockler and Woodcrafters too. Well, I kind of like. It doesn't have to be a Festool. Now I was watching a program earlier on YouTube. They were talking about Festool. Okay, so my question to you, you guys out there that have Festool, why did you buy Festool over like Milwaukee or DeWalt? I don't see the difference. I mean, what really brought you to Festool that made it different than everybody else? And the reason I say this, okay, so I had this thing when I used to do construction work. I worked with this other guys, the other two contractors. I was the only one that had Craftsman tools. And this is a true story. Funny part about it is John Hoff, it's the guy's name, John Hoff and Brad Lean. And their company name was the House Right, mine was the House Wizard. Okay, so no, I'm not the Dutchman. I've changed my name 5 times already, so don't worry. Anyway, when we finished stuff off, the idea was each one of the sanders would have a different grit on it. So here's the deal. You save yourself the time going back and forth, all this other stuff. You can take this, say this has got, like this has got 120 grit. This has got 120 grit on it. I rarely use anything less than 120 only because it leaves a lot of grooves. It just adds more sanding to it. And the only reason I use it is if I've got a lot of gouges I have to take off. And you got to be careful you don't put bevels in it and stuff. Same thing with this. If you don't use it right, because the motor's on this side, it leans. You can feel it when you see it. When you go to use it, you have to basically be really, careful and run it on the side, because otherwise you're like this and you'll find yourself doing a groove in it. It's real easy. I use this for special occasions when I'm doing something that has a lot of rough stuff on it that my thickness planer doesn't take off, so that's what I use that for. But there's a couple of ways that you could put on this one. There's a couple ways that you could put sandpaper on. It's like the old fashioned. Okay, so let's say you have sheet paper doesn't have the stickum on the back of them. Well, you could use these things. Okay, these things are basically, you could use these and you stick them in there. Make sure you cut. I always tell people make sure you cut at least at a half inch longer on either side, so it'd be about an inch longer than what this thing is, because you need to wrap it around and put these on top of it. All right, that's one thing. Because right in here is where that is. That I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Yeah. So, yeah, sorry, I got it hooked up here. So that one there, like that. This one here is, like I said, you can take it and replace it like that, and then you put them back on like that. I have to clean this one up, put a new one of these. That one's pretty easy. Those two, it just depends on what you want. Now, this one here is an orbital sander. And they have the same idea. You want to stick them, or if you want to, do the Velcro thing. And I have both, so they're both okay for me. The difference when you do orbital sanding, a lot of guys like the orbital sanding for cars, for instance. They have something similar. It leaves swirls, really fine swirls. And like anything else here that you see here, it'll leave swirls. If you get to a point you're experiencing it, you're still having swirls, don't use that. Use a straight one like I do. I use this one the most because that's like my finish sander. And plus, you could get in. You could get into corners with this. It's pretty cool. So that one works really good. The orbital sander's good. They have the air ones too. I don't have any air sanders. I have ratchets and stuff in the garage for that. That stuff is automotive more than this one here, same thing, old style Bosch. Makita. And this one's been around a while, but it works great. There's nothing wrong with it. Why should I get rid of it? But again, it's the same thing. You have to take and put the paper in here. The sandpaper in there to make it work. This one doesn't have a stick. You could get the back. You can get the Velcro back for this, or just keep the stickum on there too, or just a sheet goods. But it's the same idea. Now this one is a very, very old one. I want to say it's like 50 years old, and this one is a Black & Decker, I believe. Yeah, I think it's a Black & Decker. No, it's actually FM. FM power tools. I don't know if anybody knows, but it's the same thing. But instead of that thing having it, you have rollers here. You take a screwdriver here, and you basically take I cut it like I said, an inch long. Put one in here, twist that, and it's got grabbers on here. It'll grab it in and do the same thing with this. It actually works pretty fine. I like this one with a smooth back on it too. But that one I wouldn't change. I would just use um, regular. I would just use it, the regular. I would just leave it like this and just put the sheet goods on there. The problem with the sheet goods, guys, is they're making them smaller. So you might have to buy a big sheet instead of the narrow strips that they used to. None of the same. They always come out 2 or 3 years later and change them. Now, the other one is a real detailed sander. Now, this one is wicked. I like this, except it really gouges really easy. And you have to train yourself with this. It's like any other tool. This stuff really gets in some really, hard to get to places that none of those will get into. And I don't use this much other than when I'm doing furniture. You can get up in a corner in here. I've used it for doing under stairs when you're redoing stairs, finishing that. This thing's been around. It's a Craftsman. I have no idea how old it is, but it's a detailed sander basically. And you could use this for all kinds of stuff. Excuse me, I have to get my coffee. So that's a lot of the sanding stuff that I have, this power tools. Now, you could get the cordless ones, but you know what? Here's the problem with cordless. Batteries, they don't last long. Second you put the battery in, you're drawing power out of that battery, and I know people will say, well, they last forever. Yeah, it might be true, but just think of it this way. If you don't keep it on a charger every single day, what happens to that battery is over time it slowly deteriorates, and then when you start sanding, the more it drains that battery, that tool, the more likely you're going to have bigger scratches in it because now it's slowing down and you're not getting the job done you want. So direct power for me works better. I'm a big advocate of corded. I'm sorry. The cordless stuff is fine in certain instances. As an ex-contractor, every time you're going through batteries. They change the battery packs on me 3 or 4 times. Like this is a good example. I had to buy 2 extra ones. Craftsman, when they took over the new company took over the old company, they changed the heads of these. Okay, so now, and a Milwaukee and a DeWalt did the same thing. And now I'm buying all these batteries, and guess what? They'll probably change it 2 or 3 years from now, too. I don't know, for you contractors and guys to do stuff, that drives me nuts, because then you've got all these batteries laying around. What do you do with them? You can't use the tools anymore unless you can figure out a way to fix them. It drives me nuts, man, let me tell you. Okay, so I'm going to get some other devices here. Okay, so here's some other ones. All right, so I've got a couple of these sand. This one's got Velcro on it. There's a sanding device here you can put on your drill. And all you do is just stick that on there, voila. Pretty much. Yeah, that one there is kind of shot. I have to figure out a way to get more Velcro on it, but there's that one. Same idea. I got another one here. Anyway, backup for a backup. And see, these are all the same thing. All right, you got all these different sizes. So I swear by these things, especially if you turner. You can't have enough. That's the one thing about doing bowls there. Then they also have the smaller ones. like these. And here's another one. You could actually glue, you could take a square piece like I've done in the past. Like this. And this is, you get a roll of it. This thing was like that big around. And it's lasted me for like a year and a half, something like that, year. So it is 120 and stick them. And I use this on pretty much everything. I use it for hand sanding on the lathe. I use it for, actually this one on the end I use it for, the square one. But I could use it on, you know, all of these if I wanted to. And it works out great, right? It's better to get this stuff in bulk, by the way, instead of the sheet goods, because okay, so I'll even go further than that, okay? Here's some smaller ones. Okay, so then now, I didn't bring this out. Ta-da, these are for my lathe, the sanding tools here. Same idea, these things come off. We can replace them. That one there is shot. Same idea here. Velcro. And a lot of this stuff in here, that's what you replace it with. You know, I can't say enough about not having enough sanding stuff. Every place I go, they've changed their stock. Like, for instance, I went to Lowe's. I usually go there to get some of the cheaper sandpaper. They don't have the stuff I need anymore. They quit carrying a lot of 320. Now it's the highest they got is 280. That's it. I can't find it anywhere. Some different spots might have it. But honestly, the stuff I get online. You're better off going on Amazon and looking. It's cheaper for one, and you can get it bulk. To buy one of these sheets, just to buy one of these, I think in a packet, it's like $15, you know. See, again, these different sizes in here. It works out great. I mean, I can get carried away with sanding stuff. I hate it. It's frustrating in a way. A lot of times what happens is, I'll get halfway through a job, and see, here's the disc for that one hand sander, replacements, and then there's some other weird sanding devices you want. I gotta put everything back, otherwise I'll never find it. You ever had those days where you get into it like, oh, I can't find something, I lost it, you know? I have other sanding devices too, so a lot of times that. Yeah, I'll just take these out. Now, the other thing is, when you're sanding, you got to be really sharp. This is what makes your product or whatever you're working on, your project, sharp, look sharp. I've spent a number of days fooling around with certain projects. Now, this one here, okay, I'll use this wood for an example. It's not bad when I turned it. Now, the key is having sharp tools. You don't gouge the crap out of it. I want to apologize to everybody for not answering. I'm not talking to you guys on the chat yet. I just wanted to get through with this real quick. Right here is a ridge, right? But I like, because I'm using bark on here, I like to do this by hand. Normally, I just do it, and I mean, you got when I'm doing like furniture like this, it's all done. The other thing is, you got to remember, you don't rock it when you're putting something like this on there. You don't want to rock it. You sand it. The finished sanding is always going to come down to your hand, too. By the way, you should always take your hand and do that. Now, there are people think I'm crazy when I do this, but I like to go as high as 400. But I don't do that all the time. It just depends on the wood. I've been known to take wood like I had my box I made here and polish it before I polish it. What I mean by that is I use the sandpaper and I get it to the point where it's the wood that I'm working on is almost shiny without putting a varnish on it. I don't know if anybody else ever done that, but I did that. Now here's the downfall with that. It doesn't get into the pores of the wood. It's like you put varnish on it and you want to put another coat of varnish on top of it, because it's worked out most of the time. But when I'm doing stuff, I'll get crazy and I'll experiment on a piece of wood and see where it goes. And you could go to all the hardware stores and look at all the sanding things and all the crap that they sell you. But what it comes down to is your eye and your hands. And I normally don't. I finish whatever before I even seal it or varnish it. I'll take it up and I have a inspector to look at that, because their hands are brittle. They're smooth. They're not like mine. I can't tell the difference because they've been beat up and I've got calluses and stuff on them. And that's what I always tell people. Have another person look at your product to see how shiny, how it is. If there's any divots or anything that needs to be corrected, do it before you varnish it, because otherwise you'll be beating yourself all over it. Biggest problem I have is the rings. And the inside, not so much the outside. The outside, I got that covered. That's what these are for. If I don't get it done on the lathe, because when I'm turning, the lathe is going counterclockwise. You're putting rings on. You're sanding it this way, right, back and forth. But the problem is the rings are still going around. You need to take it off, or if you're going to leave it on there and sand it. Make sure that you go against the rings, not with the rings, because all you're doing is doing the same thing the other stuff does. 99% of the time, your tools, if they're sharp, they won't leave too much of a indentation or rings on it. But there's always going to be something really minute in there. And if somebody really has smooth hands and they can come across it, because every time I've done the show, and whether it's an art show or a craft show, people pick the thing up like this, especially women. Now, I'm not knocking women, but you have this thing going like this. Oh, and I mean, right off the bat, I could have these sitting. It will take them 2 seconds, and they have it in their hand and go like this. As it should. But with this, the problem with this stuff, okay, is because I have bark on it, it's a little bit more difficult to sand. All this, I got to be careful that this brown stuff, all these little grains from the bark, if I want to keep those there, that I don't go too carried away with the sander, because that'll come right off. It'll take this and move this in farther. So your reveal on what your bark is will be different. So the only way I can tell you is just try it yourself and see. I like bark stuff, so that's kind of what I do when I'm sanding. As far as maintenance on these things, if you have an air compressor, blow it out. If you don't, or you got a vacuum cleaner, I hope you have a vacuum cleaner. At least vacuum the stuff up, vacuum this up. You should clean it out often. Not every time maybe, but don't let it sit around. If you're in a basement like this or a garage that has a lot of moisture, do it quite often, because that stuff will get in here and harden up. Then you end up pounding it. I guarantee you, even if I've blown these things out and taken them outside and just barely tapped it on the ground, on the driveway, there's still a bunch of stuff coming out. So the more you keep maintenance, you do the proper maintenance in all your machines, the longer they last. And no, you don't have to go out and buy all this fancy equipment. Each one of these is probably between, oh, maybe 35 to 75, 80 bucks. I don't think I have one that's any more than 80 bucks in here. I think the Bosch, yeah, this one's probably the most expensive one. I think, well, these were 70 bucks too. But yeah, I mean, you can buy good ones for 75, for 25 or 30 bucks, still works. It's the grooves. You get something, I personally, and it doesn't matter whether it's DeWalt, Craftsman, or Makita, or Bosch, they're all the same tools. Yeah, um, fast food. Okay, and it's the thing, Milwaukee, what's the difference? Okay, so to my contractor friends, I'll ask them, or to you guys, what makes you want to buy that tool? If you're stuck on one brand, why are you stuck on it? And what makes you want to buy that tool? All right, can I can prove it to you. Okay, I'm a long time Craftsman supporter, always have been, even the new stuff. But it depends on what you buy in that tool that's gonna make a difference. I'll stand by my Craftsman tools. I got some of the cream of the crop tools that are worth some fortune right now because they don't make them like that anymore. But they're also 1960s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And, I mean, before they went, I think 90s, maybe the year 2000 or something. These two are the newest ones, but they're probably like 20 years old, 15, 20 years old. No, I take this back. I got these 2014. All right. They work great. Anything wrong with them. They vibrate. And this is where I was saying the difference between these vibrate, this goes around in a circle. It's just going around like this. So, the good way to tell is if you're taking paint off a piece of furniture, you go to sand it. If you take one of these and you put it on there and you just move it a little bit and you see what it does. You can see what I'm talking about. Same thing with this. If you just move it a little bit, most of the time, this one here is they're just slowly taking it. If you're not experienced in how to never used one of these before, it's not that big a deal that you'll have to take and learn on your own. No, no big deal. It's like me learning how to turn a pen not too long. It took me once I got it done, it took me like 10 minutes to do a pen. There's nothing to it. Oh, there is if you want to drill a hole straight. Try to do that on a drill press. And no. That's why I got the chuck for my lathe. It works. The tools for the right job. Always get the tools for the right job. Right tools for the right job. Or what I say, get the right tools for the job. I used to work with a guy that was like that. Years ago, when I first learned the trades, he always said that, man. And I'm talking way back. But there's always something, and I'm not Norm Abrams. I wish I was. I had all his tools, man. I've got some other sanding devices I use, but it's basically you can get the foam pads. I've used those on a lot of occasions. The only problem with them is they clog up really good, so I usually use those on a finished thing, not really like rough. Um, the same kind of stuff you would be using, like even if you were painting. But by far, if you get away with ordering online and get the bulk stuff, it's way cheaper. Way cheaper. You're cutting your cost in half. And again, the stuff they sell in the stores is cheap. It'll come off in 5 minutes and you're done. You'll be throwing away sandpaper left and right. So anyway, I hope that takes care of what I was going to talk about today. You got questions or comments? Please leave them. And I hope you enjoyed my little spiel about crap. It's kind of I love sanding, but it's also kind of a rough subject. Get it? Anyway, I'll talk to you, gents or girls or whoever out there, in the near future, I'm going to go refill, plenish my coffee, and maybe I'll go work on the trains today. I'm supposed to be getting my trucks, my new couplers. So maybe I might show you how to put a truck together. Not a regular truck, a truck. Thanks for watching the Dutchmans Wood Shack. And remember, keep an open mind. Be creative. Do something. Make some sawdust. Make sawdust. God bless you guys. Oh, first, I have to thank you all first before I go off. I know I'm going off. Make it long. For all those that are out there that know, that have been passing me on, thank you very much. I have my friend over at a radio station, WRMN Sonar, and Ben, and the people over at that radio station for plugging me. Got to thank them. Anybody that watch them off that station, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me know, please, what you think. If you guys, I need comments from you guys. So leave me a comment. If there's subject matter you want me to talk about, I'll do it. Just holler. So I'm trying to get a compilation of all these things I want to talk about in this shop. And my shop is always wide open to you guys. You see it, I got it. It's dirty. It's a dustbin. This is what I call Dustmiteville, USA. So, and I'm Duster. That shouldn't be the Dutchman. It should be Duster. Now I'll let you guys go. God bless. It's Friday. It's freaky, far out, fun filled Friday. All right. So have yourself a good day. Don't work. Don't spend it all at work. Go do something creative. Be positive. Don't go out the door negative. It's going to be a nice weekend for everybody. God bless. And remember, somebody's always looking out for you. If it isn't me, it's somebody else. God bless.